David Ducker coming back at you, and today we're going to be talking about GM organization. This is a video I've done previously, a long time ago, but I thought I would do an updated version as there's been some interest in that old previous video, but I don't think the video was quite up to snuff, modern standards, modern techniques, things that I've learned since then. So basically, this is how you get your notes set up, how you write them, how you organize them, how you keep them, how they're accessible for you once you've got the world built, or while you're building it, to make sure that it's built in a way that's accessible to you as a GM. So my previous advice, what I used to do, was get yourself a 3-ring binder and organize it by faction. So you'll have one page dedicated to the temple, one to the government, the military, religious groups. You know, each noble house, if you have them. Each guild gets its own page if you have different guilds. Each starship can have its own page if you're in sci-fi, whatever you're doing. And then that way, whoever you meet, whoever you run into, you think, what faction is he in? I'll go to that page. There he is with all the other guys in his faction. And that's how I used to do things. So very easy, faction-based, as my game is usually faction-based. What I've begun doing now is not much different from that. Essentially, I've been using Facebook. So I've got my Facebook groups, you know, God of Dameron, To Another Shore, Pirates of Lustria. So I've got my Facebook groups. I make a page, not a group, but a page, in fact, because it's easier to organize. And I'll make a picture folder for each faction. And then I'll dump in the portraits for each character. But it's otherwise pretty much exactly how I just said. So now I've got a folder for the temple, a folder for the clergy, a folder for each starship and its crew. Each port, in the case of Pirates of Lustria, has its own folder. And we've got all the portraits in there. So that I found a little bit easier, both to access, because I don't need a binder. I just need a laptop or a smartphone. That's generally easier for me to carry around. So that's one thing. It's easier to share with other people. I do have to adjust how I write the notes so that only public knowledge is in my notes. But for me, that's not usually a problem. So that's another thing. It's more accessible for the players. Also, you have a portrait. And I love art, fantasy art, sci-fi art, any kind of art. So for me, that's a lot of fun. You know, I've got thousands and thousands of portraits on my computer, and you know, I'm a little bit OCD. I've got them organized by, you know, genre, by character class, by gender, by hair color. However, I've got them organized, but I already have them so well organized that it's pretty easy for me to slot them into a place in a game. You know, I can say to myself, well, I'm building a knightly house. Okay, I'll go to my folder. It says knights, dark-haired knights, males, and I'll go through and like, oh, okay, these guys can look similar. They're a family. You know, and I grab the most interesting-looking portraits only. If the guy's portrait looks boring, he's probably not making it into my game. I'll give him the most interesting-looking characters to inspire the role-playing. So the portraits, that's definitely a big factor. And I'll come back to that accessibility. Because it's online, the players can look through that away from game, make plans and schemes away from the table as well. So that's very helpful indeed. You know, if they say, okay, I want to get in good with the clergy, they can pull up that folder on Facebook, say, okay, who are the different clergymen? Oh, okay. Oh, that guy. Oh, it says here he's rumored to have underworld connections. I gotta go talk to him, and then they can go do that right away. When we next get to table, they don't have to ask me as many questions because they have the information at their fingertips. So that's really how I do my organization, is just by faction. and just have each character linked up to some faction. And I'll usually have like a generic faction, like the City of Nuln. If somebody doesn't fit anywhere else, I'll get all my Nuln characters, the people who live in that city, in one folder together until they form a sub-faction or jump to a sub-faction or something like that. So that's really how I do my organization. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Um, Being organized, of course, speeds up play tremendously. If you've got 100 NPCs in no particular order in your notebook, that's a living hell. But if you've got 100 NPCs spread out over 50 pages, and then you've got, well, that's only 2 per page, but I mean, they could be big write-ups if it's a really detailed NPC, but let's say even 10 pages of 10 NPCs each. But if that's where the factional lines are divided, it'll be really easy to find each individual at any given time. So I just wanted to go through and kind of update on that. Usually I'll have other art folders as well, like one for weapons and equipment, one for vehicles and vessels. I might have definitely one for maps. And in the description of each of those folders, I'll keep track of any house rules, of any important stats you need to know, and of course my geographical write-up. In To Another Shore, you've got a folder for Haven, and each district has its own portrait, which is great. And each portrait has a description of what you'll find in that district, what it's like. And the description for the folder just has all of those crammed together in one. So if the players want to say, oh, we're going to Haven, I'm going to read up on Haven before we get there. The information's there for them. Or for me, if I'm saying, okay, you're flying into Haven, I can just pull up my Haven thing, and I got 10 pictures, one for each district, and I can say, this is what you see. And I give them the portrait, and I'll describe what they see, but they can see it and hear it at the same time, and that really, really helps immersion, get them immersed into the game world. So yeah, the house rules are there, the character descriptions are there, it's on Facebook, so they can access it at any time. They can send you messages, links, you can drop their own stuff in there sometimes. So I've moved forward from the notebook into the future. But however you do it, I'd recommend you do it by factions and geography. Most of my games are geographically small areas, so it's really just factions. But for example, in Pirates of Lystria, it's mainly ships and ports. Those are our factions. Who's in this port city? Who's on that ship? And then we got a folder for maps, a folder for weapons and equipment, a folder for that might be all our folders. It probably isn't. Ships, just different kinds of ships and such like that. So I thought I'd just do this update, quick video, how I organize things now so they're accessible for me quickly, for the players at any time. So we have the art that enhances the gameplay. So that's what I'd recommend to you. But let me know in the comments below, how do you organize your notes? Do you do it factionally, or do you do it chronologically, in the order of appearance perhaps? Let me know what works for you. What have you tried? What do you think of this method? And until I see you again, good day and good gaming.